Hello, and welcome to another That's a Good Question video podcast, brought to you by the Seymour, Tennessee Church of Christ. I'm Tom Miller, minister for the church. Our question for today has to do with Matthew chapter 7 and the matter of judging. Now, when we say that a behavior is right or wrong, that a belief is right or wrong, we make that judgment. Somebody is almost sure to say, now wait a minute, that's judging. And doesn't the Bible say we are not to judge? Well, what about that? Let's begin by reading from Matthew 7, and I want to read 5 verses. Judge not, that you be not judged. For with what judgment you judge, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. And why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not consider the plank in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me remove the speck from your eye, and look, a plank is in your own eye? Hypocrite, first remove the plank from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. That's Matthew 7, 1 through 5. It began by saying, judge not, that you be not judged. But let's lay another passage alongside of that. This one is from John chapter 7 and verse 24. Do not judge according to appearances, but judge righteous judgment. What about that? Are we to judge or not to judge? Which passage is right? Well, friends, they're both right. One of the things we learn about Bible study is that the context determines the meaning. In these two passages, Jesus is talking about judging, but it's not the same kind of judging. Clearly, there is a judging that is wrong, and there is a judging that is right. Now, the verb back in Matthew 7, in the original language in which the New Testament was written, means stop judging. They were to cease and desist, so to speak. Jesus did not want his disciples taking on the attitudes and the actions of others. He pointed out that there was a kind of judgment that they should stop. He mentioned it's like trying to get the speck out of your brother's eye when you have a plank in your own eye. That, friends, is sheer hypocrisy. Now notice, he doesn't say they were not to help their brother with the speck, but he says you get rid of the plank first, and then you will see clearly. The judgment that he's talking about is the judgment of the religious leaders of that day. That's what they were doing. They tried to help people get the speck out of their eye while they had a plank in their own eye. It was harsh, cruel, condemning. It judged not on the basis of righteous matters, but upon their own hypocrisy. And he warned that if you judge that way, you can expect to be judged that way. But this passage in Matthew 7 does not mean that we should not make a discernment between good and evil, between right and wrong. As a matter of fact, the Bible repeatedly tells us to do that very thing. In Romans chapter 16 and verse 17, for instance, Paul said, now I urge you, brethren, note those who cause divisions and offenses contrary to the doctrine, and avoid them. What's Paul saying? If you find someone who is causing offense, which is causing divisions contrary to the gospel, then you mark them and you avoid them. Now that sounds like making a judgment to you, or to me. What about you? But the basis of that judgment is to be righteousness. That's what Jesus was talking about in John chapter 7. Don't judge according to outward appearances. Why? Well, things are not always as they appear to be. We even say don't judge a book by its cover. We must make sure that we have the facts, that we're not jumping to conclusions. We must know what the Word of God teaches on the matter, and then, and only then, can we make a righteous judgment. In fact, when we look further in that passage in Matthew 7, Jesus says we are not to give what is holy to the dogs or what is precious, beautiful to the swine. Doesn't that demand a judgment? He's not talking about those animals literally. He's talking about people who act like that. A little later, Jesus would tell his disciples that when they went into a village and they were not received, they were to shake the dust off their feet and move on to the next village. Doesn't that sound a whole lot like judging? Because the people were not respecting the sacredness and the preciousness of the gospel. So, are we to judge or not to judge? The answer is yes, depending on what kind of judging we're talking about. We are to judge righteous judgment, not unrighteous judgment. We are to judge according to the teachings of the Word and not according to appearances. We are to make determinations between good and evil, between right and wrong, but not hypocritically, not harsh, cruel, condemning judgments. We are to judge according to the teachings of the Word always, and that's not a violation of Matthew 7:1. I do hope that you found today's question and answer period helpful. To submit a question to be considered, just send me an email, tom@seymourcoc.org. But now, we bid you goodbye for today and ask God to richly bless you.